Well, it's high time that I caught up on Superman and Lois. So, yeah, a little behind because of, Halloween, the election stuff, and, back pain. So anyway, I caught up on 2 episodes of Superman and Lois. And even though, again, they're quiet episodes, and look, they just don't have the money to do superhero battles every episode. So they've managed to craft an intriguing narrative, I think, through characters that are well performed that I like. So with Break the Cycle, we get the story of Luther and his daughter and their early years when she was a little girl living with him and her mother. And then, the divorce came because, being married to Lex Luthor is not all that. And we get the insight into Luthor the way he is. And it's interesting because in the past there had been versions of Luthor's early life in that his father was a harsh man and rather abusive to him. Here, it was his mother. His father was still a deadbeat and left. But then again, it was probably because he couldn't stand to be married to Luthor's mother. I don't know. But his mother was very abusive to young Lex, and it turned him into the cold bastard that he is now. But it also probably gave him his drive to achieve what he did, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, it made him very cold towards his wife, and ultimately she couldn't take it anymore. Plus, she's obviously aware of the criminal activities he's been involved with, and wants to get her daughter away from that. Well, daughter is wanting to be daddy's girl. so eventually stayed with him, but ultimately realized who and what her father was. And then, of course, everything came to a head when Lois did her expose, not knowing that it was a setup by Bruno Mannheim, but nevertheless, hey, he was guilty of other stuff, but he wasn't guilty of that. So Luthor is running with that because that's the thing that got him and put him in prison. He blames Lois for the loss of his daughter. His daughter ran away and hid. And so we finally meet her. She's pregnant, and Luthor is wanting to reconnect. And actually, Superman is for this idea. He says, if we can do that, maybe we can end all this, and Luthor will give up on his revenge plot. Of course, it's a little late. I mean, sure, Superman was resurrected, but Sam Lane can't be. So he flat out murdered Lois's father. So, but, they reach out to the daughter. She agrees to meet with him. And the daughter puts it on the table, says, leave them alone. And, I'll let you get to know your grandchild. And of course, he's too eaten up with revenge. He's too far gone, and he won't let it go. And so the daughter says, I tried, but I don't ever want to see you again. And that's it. So, of course, instead of realizing it's his fault that this has happened, he's back on course for his revenge. And so trying to reach Lex Luthor and to calm the beast didn't work out. However, in that vein, Lois has a different idea and decides on her own to call out Doomsday, which obviously could have gone very badly. But it was something even as it's unfolding, I thought, I wonder if they did this, if this is the way to defeat him, because Superman he's weaker now because of the human heart in him. And even when he was at full power, he couldn't beat Doomsday. Doomsday defeated him and killed him. So he's realizing this, and he tries to figure out a way that he can counter Doomsday. And he's just like, I don't think I can do it, Now, one of the 2 ways they could go about this is that, the kids are going to have to join you. And there's been rumors of Supergirl making an appearance. That would they call her in, and the whole family takes down Doomsday or something like that. But you know, that would be rather expensive. Another way is to talk Doomsday out of it. Well, how could you do that? Well, in this version, Doomsday, of course, is originally the alternate universe Superman, who became Bizarro Superman. And he had a family like Superman has, and he had a Lois Lane that he was in love with. So Lois appeals to him to remember who he was, and it works because Luthor goes back looking for his pet Doomsday and realizes he's gone, and damn it. So Lois was able to reach Doomsday. You can't reach Lex Luthor. So it was a pretty good episode, and weighing in the flashbacks of his background and stuff, which it's all a coincidence, but at the same time I was watching the Penguin episode where you see his early years as a child and everything. So, you know, two villains and you get their backstory. But and so following that, Luthor is he's back on even more so in his plot to destroy primarily Lois Lane, and Superman. But Superman, of course, came back. So he's like, oh, well, there's other ways to skin a cat, and all this. So he's trying to build a new headquarters for his company to great detriment to the company, because the board is like, what the hell is he doing? Is it, hey, he's Luthor, you don't tell him what to do and all that. But Lana Lang, as mayor of Smallville, manages to put a stop to that by convincing the landowner not to sell to Lex Luthor. And Luthor keeps rising the price, but everyone is like, there's something wrong here. Meanwhile, it's become obvious to everyone in Smallville, they've figured out who Clark Kent is. Some of the kids in school realize the boys are his sons and that they have powers and all this sort of stuff. Other people realize that he's Superman. The woman who was going to sell her farm property to Luthor, Clark Kent shows up to try to talk her out of it and she's like, well, after everything you've done for us in the world, He's like, what do you mean? So it's that sort of thing is unfolding, at least as far as Smallville is concerned. And so Luthor, pissed off, decides, well, I'm just going to take out Lana Lang. So he gets this convict out of prison, sends him on the mission to kill Lana Lang. But fortunately, Sarah's there to beat the guy over the head with a baseball bat and all that. And so, but nearly succeeded in killing Lana. And, Clark loses it and goes to confront Luthor, and they have a fight in the street. Well, Luthor's not going to win that, no matter how depleted Clark is. Well, Luthor anticipated something like this, being Lex Luthor, and all the street lamps, he had them refitted with red solar lensed light, so Superman doesn't have any powers under those lights. And yet Superman still beats his ass. And it was looking like he was so mad he was about to kill Luthor, and Luthor says, I've shown them who you really are and all that, but he doesn't kill him. So there you go. Even with they don't have the money to do the spectacular superhero battles, they've weaved a good enough story to maintain an interesting narrative for it all that's credible within its confines. And I was surprised by the spectacular superhero battle you got at the open. So if you can spread out the scenes you need and save the money for a good climactic battle at the end and whatnot, then that should work. And with what Lois has achieved with Doomsday, there might not be that much of a battle anyway, or Doomsday just might take Luthor with him at the end, because Luthor had his opportunity for some amount of redemption. You're not going to get much redemption after what he did to Sam Lane, but at the very least, he had a choice, and he still chose not to. And that means there's no reaching the guy, So they've established that. A sweetheart ending for Luthor after all this. Yeah, that's not going to cut it. So, but nevertheless, actually, really good performance in this Luthor, in that he is. He's not kind of a joke. He doesn't, be a bit of a clownish take on the character. He's extremely ruthless and brutal. And the only other thing would be like the animated series. He was a more cool Luthor, but extremely cold and brutal in his own right. And I think you need more of that for a Luthor these days. And maybe they'll present something akin to that. Maybe a combination of the two iterations for the DCU. But I am enjoying this Luthor versus Superman tale they've crafted for the little show that could. Superman and Lois.